that you can build a real company and go 0 to 100 by just...
Has there ever been a point in Lokai's journey where you thought about walking away?
You see these like crazy things about working like 20 hours a day. I think that's all BS.
If you had to go back to 19-year-old Stephen, what would you tell him?
Don't question yourself.
If you had to start from scratch, how would you approach the first 6 months?
I would...
Lokai has over 1 million followers on Instagram, massive community. What's been the key to building that emotional connection at that scale?
That's something that I wish I would have found you earlier.
Cool guys, today's guest is a founder who turned a bracelet into a movement. Stephen Eisen is the creator of Lokai, the purpose-driven accessories brand that puts water from Mount Everest and mud from the Dead Sea into every product as a symbol of life's highs and lows. And since launching in 2013, Lokai has generated over 8 figures in revenue, built a community of millions, and donated over $10 million to charitable causes. Stephen's journey is about more than just selling bracelets. It's about building a meaningful brand that connects deeply, scales sustainably, and stays rooted in purpose. Today we're diving into what it really takes to build an e-commerce business that lasts without burning out along the way. And Stephen isn't just a client of my agency Hayes, he's also a good friend of mine. And Stephen, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited for today's conversation to dive in. We have a lot of great questions, so I think we dive straight into it. Good with you?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So the first question I have is an interesting one. If Lokai was to disappear tomorrow and you know no one could buy your products again, what do you hope that they remember the most about the brand?
It's a very thoughtful question. I would hope that people would remember Lokai as a brand that had real impact on people's lives in a positive way and was able to do so much good as a company.
Okay, that's awesome. And I guess like taking a step back to rewind, what was happening in your life when the idea for Lokai first hit you?
Yeah, sure. So I came up with the idea for Lokai when I was 19 years old. I was a freshman at Cornell, and my life was great. Everything was going well, but that year my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and I was very close to him growing up. He drove me to school every day. He taught me to play golf. He was someone that I was just really close to, and so that brought me to a huge low, probably the biggest low in my life up until that point. And it really just got me thinking about the highs and lows that I was going through and how everybody goes through highs and lows in life, right? It doesn't matter your age, demographic, income level. We all have highs and lows. And so I said, okay, well, what are the highest and lowest points on Earth? Mount Everest and the Dead Sea. And what if I took elements from those two places and put them into a product that people could wear every day as a reminder to find balance in life? Staying humble when you're on top of the world and hopeful when you've hit a low. And I actually told my father that idea, and he said, that's a great idea, but everyone has great ideas. Now go execute it. That's the hard part. And so over the next 3 years in college, I really worked on kind of crafting what the company was, making samples, making the product. And then I launched it in June of 2013. So we actually just had Lokai's 12th birthday last week.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, most businesses, let alone e-commerce brands, they don't survive the first year. To be around for 12 in a difficult space as well is very commendable. It's always interesting to me to understand and learn how ideas come about. I think the products that are born from personal, whether you call it struggle or whether it's emotion, something that you go through, I think that leads to the best outcome, right? In terms of like a product or whatever it is, or even like a piece of work. So I think it's it's very interesting. And maybe for some listeners who are thinking about like different products that they can get into, I think going back to your own, like what do you wish a product was out there that symbolized, or a problem you're going through that it solves? I think it also allows you to put yourself in the customer's shoes and know what they're going through. It makes it easier to sell to them as well.
That's right. I think that this product and company was born out of my need for something to remind myself to stay humble and hopeful, right? And if it was something I need, maybe other people need it as well. So I would agree with you that when people were coming up with products, if it's something that they really need, how many other people also might need that product? I think jewelry happened to be a category where you could reach lots of people. So the TAM was very large, but yeah, I would agree with you.
I guess the other point is that it's a very unique idea as well, like something that no one had done before. Was there a specific moment, like an aha moment maybe, where you realized that this wasn't just a product, but something that people were also emotionally connected to?
Yeah, absolutely. So it actually didn't start as an ecom brand. I started by walking door to door with a display, knocking on doors and going in and saying, "Hey, I'm Steven. This is my story. This is my product. As the manager or the owner here, I'd like to sell them and on selling the product in your store." And I knew pretty fast. Not most people said no to me about selling in their stores, but every time I told someone the story, they shared back with me some of the highs and lows of their own life, right? And so people were articulating to me that they also have highs and lows and really liked the story of the product. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's definitely a way to test product market fit. I think there's a lot of brand owners, they start and they don't do the groundwork. They don't test the concept first, right? And whether that was your intention or not, or you just wanted to get it out there and start spreading the word, I think it's important for founders to think about, like, before they actually go through and bring the product to market and go through all that development process, is to understand, is this actually something that people want? So I think that feedback is essential to that journey. Stephen, another question I have is, Lokai is obviously a huge brand. It's a well-known brand. Most people, they just launch the product and then they focus on like building the brand afterwards. It seems like you did it the other way around, where you, at the outset of building a brand and building a movement from the beginning. What advice would you give to other ecom founders out there about starting with that purpose?
I think that the difference between the brand and the product is the brand is really...
Hopefully you guys are enjoying this podcast. Just a quick one. If you, just like Lokai, are looking for a partner that you can really trust in to help you scale profitably, then this is exactly what my agency, Haze, does for e-commerce brands. We help e-commerce brands scale in multiple different ways. We do customer acquisition, but also customer retention, done-for-you services, and we really become a partner. We combine marketing and finance to make sure that we are achieving profitable growth. So if that is something you are at all interested in, then there is a link below this video. You can check out my website, read some of our testimonials, watch some of our testimonials, and yeah, you can book a call. We can have a chat about your business, no obligation, just see if there's a fit for us to work together. If there's not, we'll be the first to tell you upfront that this is not a right fit. And if it is, then we'll take next steps. All right, now let's get back to the interview.
Organic feeling that people get from experiencing the product. I don't think that you can build a fake brand around a product that you create, right? And so they're kind of one and the same, but I think it has to be authentic.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that a bad product can make up for a strong brand. I think you're going to get found out eventually.
Yeah, you can't survive without a great product.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to experience as well. Like whether it's the way the customers experience your customer support, right, or the unboxing, or the shipping times, the delivery, like all those things intertwine into an experience which creates a perception in the customer's mind about your brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Steven, I'm very curious about, launching in 2013, and you said it wasn't an e-commerce brand to begin with. When was it really that you pivoted into becoming, let's say, an e-commerce brand? Maybe you saw the opportunity. Because back then, I don't even know when Shopify started, but when was the point at which you were like, yeah, there's an opportunity to go direct to consumer? And yeah, I guess what were those key levers that helped you grow in the early years?
Yeah, I mean, we did have a direct consumer site in the early days. We weren't on Shopify back then, and our site crashed all the time. But I think the real kind of pivotal moment for us was going into all those stores and telling people about Lokai, friends, family, whoever, strangers, and having them articulate the story back. I knew people like to talk about themselves through our product. And at that age, that was right around when Instagram was getting very popular. Back then, there were no direct messages. People just had their emails in their bio. And so I started to email people and say, hey, these were athletes, celebrities, influencers. I saw your mom was just diagnosed with breast cancer, or hey, I know you're going through this, or hey, congrats on winning the Super Bowl, whatever it might be. Can I send you a Lokai? This is what we stand for. And I would just send people product for free, and they would then post about the product and tell their own story of highs and lows in their own life. And it just became a ripple effect and really exploded from there.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting. I think the story is what interests people as well. Like, people love to listen to other people's stories, and they want to see themselves in other people's stories. And I think even when it comes to advertising and creating ads, it's like, we don't want to preach to people what they should do or what they shouldn't do, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. Instead, we want to meet them where they're at in the conversation they're having in their mind already, right? And then show them a different path. I guess on that point as well, I mean, I've been running Facebook ads since 2016. I've seen a lot of different things over the years, a lot of highs and lows on my side as well, I would say, in the marketing space. I'm sure you've also seen a lot. What's something you did in those it could be the first 1 year, 2 years, the first 3 years, or even when you started going direct to consumer, that would not work if you tried the same thing today?
That would not work.
Yeah.
I think using influencers in the way that we used them. We saw a window and we jumped through it, and we had a competitive advantage, and it worked, right? Today, just because of reach and because of costs, we wouldn't have the money or the scale that we did when we were first doing. So I think it's about, for new, younger entrepreneurs, it's about figuring out like what the next wave of marketing is, not what everyone is already doing today, because you're not going to find that edge by just doing what everyone else is doing today. I also just want to add that I don't believe that you can build a real company and go 0 to 100 by just throwing money at problems, right? I think it happened organically because that is how Loci grew, but I found product market fit, right? There was a real customer base of people who loved our brand and our message and the product and what we stood for. And I think you have to organically find that first to know you have something, and then marketing dollars is adding fuel to the fire to find more of those people. But you can't just expect that marketing dollars are going to bring in customers without knowing who your customer is and why they like your product first.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the research as well. Like, I think whenever you're doing something, any marketing or any product development, it's all based on research. You mentioned earlier, really knowing your customer and knowing them inside out. And I think the advantage you had as well is doing all that groundwork and learning about, when you were going door to door and they were telling you about their highs and lows, you're learning about what other people are going through. And it just reinforces that again and again and again. And I think that's, as I said earlier, it's an important step that unfortunately a lot of brand owners skip. And then I think they get to a certain stage where they realize they don't have product market fit, and it becomes a lot harder to, I guess, pull out of that because they're emotionally bought in, they're invested. The question that I wanted to ask is an interesting one as well, similar to thinking about like today's day and age. If you had to start from scratch, let's just say today, 2025, with no Instagram followers, no resources, just with your experience over the past 12 years, how would you approach the first 6 months of building Loci?
With the same product, you're saying?
Yeah, same product.
Do I have any knowledge or no knowledge yet?
You have your knowledge, you have your experience for the past 12 years, so you have that upper hand.
I would search to find groups of people in person. Maybe they're going on retreats. Maybe they're experiencing an event that is somehow connected to highs and lows. And I would work to tell my story to those people and organically spread the message and the product hand to hand in person, because I think that's the most meaningful. And if those people care and wear your product and start telling other people, I think word of mouth is the number one dream from a marketing strategy standpoint, right? Like, you can't, it's very hard to tell what the ROI on word of mouth is, right? But that's the type of product that will succeed. Ones that have real word of mouth, viral from customers to other people. And so I would try to build that group of customers first. And I wouldn't spend money on marketing until that really started to grow in a big way.
It's an interesting take. Like Alex Hormozi says, that word of mouth is either working for you or against you. And it's kind of this invisible hand that is pushing or pulling you from your objectives. And I just said you can't track the ROI of that, but I do believe it's exponential, meaning that one person tells another person who tells two people, those two people tell another three people, and like that just continues to grow, and that ripple effect just continues on. And I think it's
Yeah, like
yeah,
I can give you an example. It's like a small one. There's a kids backpack company or bag company that my good friend started called State. And if you're in like elementary school in my neighborhood, every kid has this backpack, right? And it's because all of the moms like see each other, talk to each other. He's not running ads or marketing towards this one like community, you know. So it's and you see it when you go to the school. Like every kid has this backpack, and that's just that's all word of mouth.
yeah, it's very interesting. It comes back. It comes down to like the fundamentals of human psychology as well. When you think about status, right, and how if someone else has something, and that maybe for having that thing they get respect or they get attention. Now all of a sudden other people want that, and I think when you look at what you did with Lokai, with the influencers especially, when someone sees a football player who won the Super Bowl wearing a Lokai, that's a form of influence, and that person has status and they're wearing that, and I think that also creates word of mouth. It helps to fuel that fire, and I think it just makes it even more exponential than if you didn't have the big influencers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think for the founders listening is about thinking about those communities you can go into and start to even just set the scene for word of mouth. Like you can't really push it and create it, but you can have the environment that's conducive to creating word of mouth. As long as you create, you go into the right communities based on that example you gave with State.
And it has to be a great product.
Yeah, that's a given.
Yeah.
Cool. I want to switch gears and talk more about sort of the mindset of running a brand, because social media is great, but it's also, there's a lot of dark sides to social media. I think one is the outlook. A lot of people think that, okay, if you're running a brand, everything is sunshine and rainbows. It's it's fun. And of course there are those moments, but I think a lot of people forget about the lows as well, right? When we're talking about highs and lows, the lows of running a brand and how tough it is, and the challenges that you face along the way. So the question I have is, how do you handle those quiet lows, right? Those ones that no one sees, right? Maybe could be related to metrics like sales dipping, could be related to an idea that failed, or even just personal motivation that sometimes is not where you'd want it to be. Yeah, how do you handle those?
Yeah, and I wouldn't just say it's for a brand owner, right? It's any entrepreneur, and I think over the years, it's been 12 years now. And it's funny because Lokai is about highs and lows. But as an entrepreneur, you have so many highs and you have so many lows. And I think it's about not getting too over your skis when things are great and not getting too down when things are down, right? I have worked really hard over the years. I've realized when things are bad in business, the only thing I can control is my emotions. And if I'm going to get upset about it, or if I'm just going to say, okay, that happened, let's move on, right? And so I try to be as even keel as I can through the highs and the lows, because it's always going to change and you're never going to be at one for too long.
Yeah, I think to add to that, there's also, what you can control and what you can't control. And I think a lot of people try to control what they actually can't control. And in doing so, they get frustrated, and it actually leads to more of a downward spiral. And it goes back to the principles of Stoicism as well, which I'm a big fan of, like Stoicism and philosophy, and how you shouldn't get too excited or too, like, I guess, in the opposite direction, right? Depressed and down, and more so just keep in the middle. And some people might say, well, that's not a great way to live life, because you don't get too excited about things. But I think if we're talking about sustainability and longevity, at least for me, that's a theory that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Especially in business.
Yeah, I think emotions, while important, the logic side of it is key. And I think founders need to. Yeah, it's tough. You're going to have days where you think everything is falling apart, and you have to figure it out somehow. Related to that, Stephen, has there ever been a point in Lokai's journey where you thought about walking away?
No. I mean, it was so emotional for me, especially at the beginning, right? That I was naive. I was 19, when I started working on it, right? I didn't realize how good margins were in jewelry. Like it could have been any industry and anything, but I was just a hard-headed, stubborn entrepreneur with a mission, and I wasn't going to let anyone tell me no. Now, being older, having more experience, having had failures, understanding your industry, understanding the headwinds and the tailwinds, and your kind of ability to succeed within that industry, I think is much more important. But when you're young and a kid, and you ignorance is bliss sometimes, right? And you can make the impossible happen.
Yeah. If you had to go back to 19-year-old Stephen, what would you tell him?
Don't question yourself. Go. Which is what I still do. I would say everyone has advice. Everyone has opinions. If you ask 10 people for their advice, they'd give you 10 different answers, right? At some point, you just have to trust yourself and your instincts and your judgment. And that's one thing I've always done. I've never doubted myself, and I've always just taken the full swing.
I heard something once where it was like the best advice you could receive is from yourself, because you know yourself the best. And it's an interesting perspective, because a lot of the times we don't think we know enough about ourselves or have perspective. But another take as well is that you should give yourself the advice that you would give to the people you love, right? If someone you love comes to you with a problem, likely you're going to give them very good advice. You know them, you know their history, their background. But a lot of times we fail to give that advice to ourselves. Is that something you agree with? And if so, like why do you think we fail to maybe trust ourselves or fail to give the advice that we think we can to ourselves that would be helpful?
Yeah, I don't think it's that we don't give ourselves good advice. I think it's sometimes we don't want to face the reality of what that advice is, right? And one thing that I've gotten really good at over the years and learned is the faster you make hard decisions, or once you know the answer to a hard decision, if doing it is hard, the faster you do it, the better the outcome will be, right? Whether that's needing to let somebody go, or whatever it might be, I try to do those things as fast as possible once I know that is the right decision for the company.
Yeah, I agree with that take. It's something that I know that I'm working on. I have improved over the years, and I think it's always a work in progress, right? Everything is a learning along the journey. So I want to talk more about the community side of things, of building a brand. A lot of brands that I see, the ones that make it far are the ones that do focus on community and focus on retention as well. Lokai has over 1 million followers on Instagram, a massive community. What's been the key to building that emotional connection at that scale?
I think Lokai did an amazing job of building an emotional connection with each customer, right? So we've done a lot of different partnerships. Obviously, the underlying message of Lokai, and Lokai is an emotional brand. Jewelry as a category is very emotional, right? People don't wear a necklace. Some people wear it because they think it looks cool, but a lot of them are wearing a necklace or a ring because they were given as a gift, right? Or something meaningful happened and they bought it for themselves. So there's a lot of emotion tied up in jewelry, right? And so our underlying message of balance, staying humble and hopeful really connects with everyone. But then we took it a layer deeper and we partnered with specific charities and specific sports teams. And so we have a breast cancer Lokai, an Alzheimer's Lokai. We have a Lokai for Make-A-Wish, right? And so I think that just everyone has highs and lows. And then we also touched on something that might touch you as an individual even deeper emotionally.
Yeah. The charitable side is something that's close to my heart. I'm curious, at what point did you make the decision to include those charitable initiatives and have those partnerships with the Breast Cancer Foundation or the Alzheimer's Foundation or whatever charitable organization it is? Yeah. And I guess what was the fuel behind making those decisions to partner with those organizations?
Sure. Because of my grandfather and Alzheimer's, from literally day one, we said we were going to give back 10% of profits to charity, right? So it was integrated, I guess, or as organically and early as it could be as part of who Lokai was and what we stand for. I believe you either are building a company and a brand from day one or early on that has that a part of it, or you make your donations and do good in the world. I don't want to say in private, but I do feel like a lot of brands kind of jumped on the let's give back and be a purposeful brand to try to make more money, but not because that's what they really stood for, right? And I think customers are smart enough to tell the difference. I'll use like Tom's as a inspiration and an example of a company that did it because that's what they stood for, and it's so deeply ingrained in who Tom's is as a company. So I think it's a decision that has to be thought through carefully and early on.
Yeah, it has to be authentic.
Correct.
Like customers are smart.
Yeah, authentic's the right word.
Yeah, yeah. On the note of building personal connection, is there a story or message from a customer over the years, maybe one that comes to mind, one of your favorites, that made you stop and say, yeah, this is why we do this. This is why we go through the highs and the lows?
There's been a lot. I mean, we've gotten lots of letters that have made me and will make people cry. I'd say the first one that just pops into my head is there were two women that were from different countries in a hospital next to each other in their beds. One of them loved and had a bunch of locais, and they both left the hospital, and the one with the locais passed away. And she, in her will, she sent or gave all of her locais to the other woman who was next to her in the hospital. And she told us the story. And so that's one I remember. But it's just, I mean, endless. And there's also probably 50 to 100 people with loci tattoos as well.
Well, that strikes deep. I think you could do a whole series on those stories. I think it's amazing to hear how people connect to the brand as well. And sometimes
I have another one for you. There was a mother that reached out to us. Her daughter loved loci, and she passed away. The daughter, and we had a partnership with Disney a few years back, and there was an Up, the movie Up. We had an Up bracelet, a loci, and that was her daughter's favorite movie. And so she was trying to find the Up loci to buy because hers broke that she had from her daughter, and we don't make it anymore. So we reached out to our community and asked if anyone had an Up loci, and we were able to send her, I think, like 100 Up bracelets that people just sent for free. They didn't want anything in return. Yeah, and they sent them to us, and then and a lot of people included notes, and then we sent them all to the mom.
That really it restores your faith in humanity when things like that happen as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something I believe is also that the universe brings people together for a reason, and paths cross for a reason. And I can imagine there's a lot of stories within loci of people crossing paths, maybe also like both wearing locais, knowing about loci, or having some connection to the brand. Yeah, it's always whenever I hear a story about the quantum entanglement or the universe bringing people together, it's like it just reinforces that belief.
Love that.
Awesome. Going back to building the business, more about operations. What's one thing that you outsourced way too late, and also one thing that you're glad you never handed off?
Whew, such a hard question. I mean, now working with you, I wish we found you earlier and handed off our kind of D2C management. I think one thing that you guys do incredibly well, direct to consumer moves so fast, right? And as a small company, a small team, you only have so many resources, right? And you guys just have your finger on the pulse, and everything from the website management to email, SMS, to performance marketing, it's all tied together, right? And if you don't have that tied together in a strong way, it's very hard to succeed. And so I think one of the most successful changes we've made in the recent years is to bring you guys in as a partner to manage all of that and know kind of what's upcoming, what's happening in the market with other clients, where we should be spending less or more, or what the new opportunities are, or the tricks of the trade, you might say, right? Which are hard to get when you have a small team internally. And so, yeah, that's something that I wish I would have found you earlier.
You're very kind, Stephen. I mean, it's a pleasure and honor to work with a brand like Loci and you and your team as well. And I think when you think about any working relationship, there has to be synergy and aligned incentives, objectives, whatever it may be. And yeah, I built my business off the back of understanding what D2C brands need in terms of attention and focus and areas that come together to achieve objectives. So yeah, no, I'm glad we could. I'm glad the universe brought us together. And
Yeah. And back to what we were talking about earlier, right? I got introduced to you because of word of mouth,
exactly.
right? Oscar at Remy said you guys were doing an unbelievable job. So just shows you, even in a B2B business, how important word of mouth is.
For sure. Yeah, no, I can definitely say that word of mouth has been huge for us. So I think it's across all areas of business. You could even say in life as well. On the flip side, is there anything that you're glad you never handed off, that you always kept as like, this is my thing? This is maybe it's product, right? Maybe,
I was gonna say product. At the core of your company is the product, right? That is what the customer is paying for the value. And for me, that's always been something I've held very, I guess, close to the vest and internally. I also personally love product design, and in the early years, like being in the factory, I loved that part. So, yeah, product.
Yeah. One thing I say to brand owners is knowing your zone of genius, right? And even my team, like we don't want someone spending their time or resources on something that they don't like or they're just not good at. If they want to do it and they want to get better at it, okay, that's a different story. Then there's a different path. But I think when you're running a business is also knowing, the analogy I like is knowing like who's sitting in what seat on the bus, right? Like the bus is the business. You have a bunch of seats. Your people might be in the wrong seats, and just switching those seats around or bringing new people on the bus and putting them in those seats can make a huge difference in terms of the growth of the business.
Absolutely.
Cool. More of a behind the scenes question, similar to what we were speaking about earlier, where I guess people don't always see what goes on behind the scenes of running a brand and building a business. What's something that, let's just say in the journey of building Loci, something that I'd say you didn't expect to encounter, but also maybe other people wouldn't expect that you would have to go through or face or deal with when building the brand?
Being an entrepreneur really becomes people management. As you want to grow and expand your company, you need to bring on more people to do more roles, and your ability to find and hire the right people for the right seats on the bus, like you just said, and then manage those people and help them grow in their career, push them outside of their comfort zone, give them an opportunity to fail and learn and then succeed, right? All of that is people management. And I think that in the early days of an entrepreneur's journey, it's very lonely, right? You're doing it all at first because you are creating what you want to launch. And so I don't think for a lot of entrepreneurs, people management is the first thing that pops into their head of like where they're going to have to spend the most time. And that's what it becomes when you grow a company. So that for me was a challenge and a learning curve and something I had to improve on over the years.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's the thing I love about running my business, a marketing agency, and over the years is that I get to work with a lot of different founders, a lot of different businesses. And I mean, I have a lot of admiration for entrepreneurs because I know what every entrepreneur goes through, and some go through it at 10 times, 100 times the level that I go through, right? And I feel like there's a lot that I can learn from every business owner I speak to, whether they're, like, regardless of what stage they're at. And everyone says the same thing, that it's never as, like, it's always harder than they expected. There's always, you come in with a lot of excitement and like very optimistic, and then that quickly turns into like, okay, the reality is that we have to work very hard. There's, maybe a little bit of pessimism coming in, but ultimately, I think all entrepreneurs remain optimistic to succeed in the long run.
Yeah, you're as an entrepreneur, you're getting punched in the face a lot.
Yeah. So you have to be. You
have to be tough.
You have to get comfortable with being punched in the face.
You have to get comfortable with pressure and stress and fighting through challenges constantly.
Yeah, Stephen, I want to close off this section of our conversation, just going more into the human side of running a business. speaking about, I guess, the challenges that come with entrepreneurship, one of those, at least personally for me and a lot of brand owners I speak to, is that building a business requires a lot of sacrifice, right? In order to do something that most people won't achieve, you have to do things that people won't do, right? There's a phrase out there that says that much more elegantly than I just did. But the question is, how has running Loci changed your relationships, be it with friends, with family, and even the relationship you have with yourself?
That's a great question. It hasn't. I would say one of my superpowers is I'm able to find balance very well between work and family. I have a wife and 2 kids, and as well as my hobbies of running and then spending time with friends. I think you see these like crazy things about working like 20 hours a day. I think that's all BS, right? I would say it's the hardest part is more about discipline and doing it day after day after day for 12 years, right? I've always worked all 5 days of the week, right? Shocker, even though now like people are in and out of the office. And then I usually like check emails on. I usually probably take Saturday off, and then I'll do a handful of hours of work on Sunday. But I do that every day. I mean, like for 12 years in a row, you know. And so it's about consistency, I think, because I love the quote, everyone overestimates what they can get done in a year and underestimates what they can get done in 10 years, right? Yeah. And so I really believe that, and you can't burn yourself out. Like I sleep 8 hours a night. I think you got to get that sleep. In the very early days, okay, sure. Like I was overworking a little bit, but it's not like it's a consistent thing where you got to work so much harder than everyone else. I think it's really about, and now with all my experience, for someone listening, it's about picking the right industry that has tailwinds and is also something that you are better than most at, right? Like there are tons of people that are in AI. I know that's a very hot topic right now, right? I know nothing about AI. I know nothing about programming. Like I could never compete, even if I worked really hard and tried. Like that's not where I would outperform people in. So I think it's about finding what you're really good at in an industry that has tailwinds.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Yeah, I had something in mind as well that I wanted to latch onto. It's gone. It will come back to me.
Okay.
I guess what fulfilled you the most over the years? Like I think a lot of entrepreneurs start maybe because of money, right? Like I know I started because of money, right? It's like this is a vehicle to make money, right? More money than, going a different route. I think a lot of people find that very soon that is not a fulfilling thing. So what fulfills you maybe still today, and what I guess fulfills you over the years when running the business?
Looking back on 12 years now, I would say that some of the most fulfilling things, or the most fulfilling thing, is the journey that you go through of the highs and the lows, and what you can get through and accomplish, and how you do that with other people. It's hard to see that in the moment, right? But looking back, you kind of realize it's not about tomorrow. Like it's about the moment you're in and what you're working on at that point, and doing it with people as well as you can, and then just looking back on the whole experience and all the opportunities it gave you and people it introduced you to. And the money is great if you're successful, but money doesn't make you happy. I know people who have sold their businesses for a ton of money that are more unhappy after they sell their company than when they were running it.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen is that everyone hears the money doesn't make you fulfilled or happy time and time again. I do think you have to go through it yourself to understand that, and learn the same lesson. I think it's, as much as, yes, you want to learn from the mistakes of others and learn from the lessons of others, there are some lessons that you have to go through to learn yourself. The thing that I wanted to latch onto just beforehand was also about leverage. I think it's knowing what you're good at, but also knowing how you can leverage other people's time and resources to grow. Because at the beginning, you're doing everything yourself. You're pulling those crazy hours. But then for staying power, which you have, and for longevity, you need leverage as well. Like an amazing book one of my favorite books is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it really goes deep into this whole point of leverage and understanding that time is what is most valuable, right? It's the thing that we will never get back. So that's to continue growing and building and living a life where you get more time. You have to outsource, delegate, automate, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that's one thing that I want to add on.
I love that.
On that same note, Stephen, I guess like to close off some quick rapid fire questions. What's a book that changed how you think, or maybe opened up your mind to a new perspective?
I actually love to read fantasy, but I know this is a business entrepreneur podcast. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a hostage negotiator that wrote a book all about negotiation skills, and that was pretty eye-opening and helpful in day-to-day business and negotiations. So I highly recommend that book.
Yeah. If I may, I'll add another. I know I already mentioned Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, but I would add Reality Transurfing by Vadim Zeland. It's not so much a business tactical book. It's more of a philosophy, energy, and very, very abstract, I would say, to the norm. But I think there's a lot of lessons that can be applied into business.
I'll have to read them. I haven't read either of those.
Yeah, definitely. Both are amazing. I would highly recommend.
Awesome.
What's one product you've bought in the last year that you absolutely love?
I'm a huge runner, and so Satisfy Running, it's like a running apparel brand. I love their gear. It's super high quality and very cool.
Awesome. So going into the Lokai brand a little bit, what's your personal balance ritual when life feels overwhelming?
Running.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big runner. I ran in college, and now I really use it as like a way to meditate and think and clear my mind.
Okay, awesome. Is there any running goals that you're working towards currently?
This summer, I'm trying to run 62 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna do it?
I'm not sure yet. I don't mind races, but I kind of enjoy just like going on a trail and running. So I don't think I'm going to do it as like an organized race or anything. I'm just going to set it up myself and go.
Okay, I like it. Last one, Stephen. If you could give one short piece of advice to early stage founders, what would that be?
One short piece of advice to early stage founders. Find product market fit before you raise money and really try to grow it.
Amazing.
Without product market fit, it doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It won't work.
Yeah, I think it's something that's so, I think just not known as much. I wouldn't even say underrated, as say not as known. Yeah, Stephen, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with the viewers. I know that there's going to be a lot of eCom brand owners out there who will listen to this and take away a perspective that's going to change how they think, and just going to give them new ideas for their own businesses. Is there any last things you want to share with the audience?
I just wanted to say thanks to you for all that you do. Your team is incredible. I've never worked with a global company before. Anyone that's listening, Jordan's team is literally all over the world. It's pretty wild and very impressive. And thank you for all that you do.
I appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you. Awesome. And we're good to go.
Awesome.